Afternoon, and thank you for your patience, and thank you for joining us today for one of two virtual town hall presentations. There will be a brief presentation about the budget for the 2024-2025 school year, then questions that were submitted by Friday at 4 p.m. will be answered. The form to submit your questions is still open. Questions received by Tuesday, May 14th at 4 p.m. will be answered at Thursday's session. As a reminder, there is a public hearing for the 2024-2025 budget on Tuesday, May 14th at 7 p.m. The vote for the 2024-2025 school year budget will be on Tuesday, May 21st. Polls are open from 12 p.m. noon until 9 p.m. More information can be found on the district's website, newburghschools.org. To begin the presentation, I would like to introduce our Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Mandy Campbell, and our Assistant Superintendent for Finance, Ms. Kimberly Roaring.
Good afternoon, and thank you all for being here with us this afternoon. Ms. Roaring and I will be presenting, as well as additional members of my executive team. They will provide some of the responses to those questions that you shared with us last week. Thank you very much. Okay, we will begin with the superintendent's budget priorities for fiscal year 2025. Literacy for all scholars, supports for our English language learners and exceptional learners, also known as students with disabilities. Next slide. We're continuing to maintain the equity in our budget. We are continuously building our allocations on a student per student basis on building enrollment and student need, reviewing all of our resources that are available for English language learners, our in-district programs for our special education scholars. We're continuing to look at data-driven staffing, especially in areas of additional support that we provide for our scholars, and looking at maintaining established staffing for faculty, staff, and administrative positions.
The 2025 proposed budget does include an increase in the tax levy. That increase proposed is 3.8% or $4.2 million. This equates to approximately $14 a month for a home assessed at $300,000 in each of the municipalities. It equates to approximately $23 a month for a home assessed at $500,000 in the different municipalities. These are estimates. We are still waiting on finalized assessment rolls from the individual municipal assessors, as well as equalization rates that are set by the Office of Real Property Services of New York State. Next slide, please. The biggest expense drivers in our budget are compensation for our faculty, staff, and administrators, as well as substitute expense and additional time for additional duties. This does include all positions in the district, from teachers to guidance counselors, psychologists, our custodial staff, our clerical staff, and our aides. Employee benefits is the second largest cost driver in our budget each year. This includes our contributions to the retirement system, as well as health insurance expense, payroll taxes, and other insurances we are required to provide. Student transportation for all of our elementary students. We also go out of district up to 18 miles. Out of district tuition for foster students, students with disabilities, and charter schools. And the last biggest driver is our debt service, both for completed construction and construction now underway. Next slide, please. Our revenue change for fiscal 25 includes an increase in foundation aid of $3.49 million. Our state categorical aid increases of approximately $8.5 million. We have use of proposed one-time funds of around $11 million. We have an increase in our interest earnings. We've been able to realize additional revenue from our investments associated with the higher rates the Fed has been establishing. And we've increased our Medicaid reimbursement. Next slide, please. We have 4 different categories of revenue. Our local revenue is not just the tax levy, it's also payments in lieu of taxes, utility taxes, use fees, and interest earnings. Our state revenue, our federal revenue is primarily Medicaid reimbursement, and we have the use of appropriated one-time funds through appropriated fund balance and use of restricted reserves. Next slide, please. As we've been sharing throughout the budget development process, we have a planned use of restricted reserves. We are looking at workers' compensation, unemployment, retirement contributions, and post-employment benefit contribution reserve use of 3.9 million. And we're also looking at use of the unassigned fund balance. Next slide, please. When we look at our proposed revenue for next year, it's $360.4 million. The projected revenue consists of $225 million in state aid, about $123 million in local sources, and about $11 million in one-time funds. Next slide, please. This breaks it out to align with the pie chart. So you'll see here in blue, those are all the local sources of revenue that we have. Orange is the various methods by which the state allocates funds to the district. The gray are federal resources, and at the end, those appropriated use of reserves are the one-time funds. We made several budget adjustments, and as we moved through the development process this year for non-personnel, we reduced some software licenses. We have also reduced our BOCES services and increased our E-rate. Next slide, please. Our budget adjustments for staffing include a reduction in total of 97.5 positions across the various bargaining units. Next slide, please. And the proposed expense budget for fiscal 25 by category, as you see here, again, the blue is our compensation, the orange is our employee benefits, is the two largest drivers in our expenditures. Next slide, please. When we take that pie chart and we put it into a table, again, you'll see the total of $159 million in compensation, employee benefits. The next two biggest drivers, again, are transportation and our out-of-district tuition, for that total of $360.4 million. Next slide, please. If the budget is not approved by the voters on May 21st, then the district would be forced to reduce our budget by $4.2 million and go on a contingent budget. If that was the case, these are the reductions that we would make to get to that total. So additional faculty positions would be reduced, additional instructional software licenses, instructional technology equipment purchases, additional reduction in time in instructional supplies, teacher additional time, substitutes, athletics, general support reduction of 1.3 million, as well as reductions in our custodial equipment for 4.2 million total. Next slide. So the district is submitting all of the required documents to SED. We've prepared the required mailings. We have held our public hearing tomorrow at 7 p.m. And again, the annual vote is on May 21st.
So now we will be addressing some questions that were received. Next slide, please.
So I will just chime in here. I know that Dr. Sklarz did share this throughout the budget development process. We have provided specific information about the district's finances, the use of our reserves, state aid programs offered, and our expense reductions. The district provided an opportunity for the community to submit questions in advance of today's town hall. We received 13 questions from community members, students, and faculty and staff. They appear exactly as they were submitted online, so we have not corrected any of the questions. We copied and we pasted. Responses to the questions are incorporated into this presentation. Please know that any questions that were submitted after 4 p.m. on Friday will be responded during our second virtual town hall, which is May 16th at 6 p.m. virtually. Next slide.
Ms. Roaring will continue to answer questions related directly to the finance department.
The first question we received and related to finance was at one of the meetings, it was mentioned by Ms. Roaring, I believe, that the district is in a structural deficit. If that is the case, how can the district be in a healthy financial condition without significant layoffs? And how can the district maintain programs, small class sizes, support services, custodial duties, security, clerical, and other functions if there are layoffs? In response, the district must begin to right-size our staffing. Positions have been added with one-time funds to support the transition back to in-person learning after COVID. As we have stated over the past 18 months, these positions were not planned to be sustained after those funds expired. As fiduciaries of the district, we must make sure we evaluate programs and maintain those best supporting our students, use industry standards for staffing ratios and support staff areas, and set staffing ratios to inform adjustments to be made as we continue forward. The second question is around school lunches. Will school lunches still be free for 24-25? At this time, we anticipate the district will continue to be eligible for the community eligibility provision that provides meals for free. The district's operating budget does not cover or does not support breakfast and lunch programs. This is separately funded through the cafeteria fund, and that fund is primarily supported by the USDA program. The third question is, as I go line by line, I noticed that for each department, there is a BOCES amount. All of them add up to over $19 million. I was wondering if you could shed light on what these charges are. In response, most of this expense is out of district tuition for our high needs students with disabilities attending specialized programs. The total proposed budget for BOCES is $19.9 million, and of that, 18.7 is tuition. There are operational platforms in this budget, such as Board Docs used by the board, OLAS used by our Human Resources Department, actuarial services that are required for the annual external audit, data and technology, and some instructional programs, as well as fees for our officials for athletic programs being paid through this budget. Next slide, please. The budget shows an increase of 25 to 20.8 million based on whether the budget passes or it goes to contingency. Why is the district asking for 6.2 million from local taxpayers when you have 19 million over last year's budget, which is a 5.6% increase? Inflation was 4.1% in 2023, and the labor agreement with the NTA was well below 5.6% increase. In response, the proposed tax levy increase is 4.2 million. The district has not raised taxes in 9 years, though expenditures continue to increase annually. Salary increases are a mandated expense once the contract is approved by the board, but there are many items that increase each year, as we have outlined throughout the budget development process. These include tuition for out-of-district placements, foster and charter schools, our utility expenses, employee benefits, and district insurance, as well as audit fees and transportation. Many of these are mandated expenses, and they increase by 5% or more annually. What is the proposed use of one-time funds of 7.9 million and the 3-year amount of 12.5 million? This is a large item. In response, the use of one-time funds is a total of 10.9 million, including 7.5 of appropriated fund balance, 3.4 in restricted reserves. These are a general revenue source for the operating budget. Each source of revenue is not explicitly attached to specific expenditures, with the exception of New York State Education Department categorical aid, such as transportation aid, textbook and computer software aid, and building aid. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Ms. Roaring. Questions related to human resources will be answered by Mr. McLemore, our Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources.
Thank you, Dr. Sklarz. So there were two questions in relation to human resources, or better known as human capital partners. First question is, there are several marked stipends that are new. What are these for? They add up to $379,717. The response: some of the stipends are funded with grant funds, are required to implement the grant requirements, and others are associated with additional responsibilities. The second question: why are we hiring staff at higher wages when we can't afford the staff we already have? Response: compensation is based on collective bargaining agreements and level of experience. The district considers contract settlements of area districts to make sure that we are competitive in compensation to recruit and retain highly qualified staff for our scholars.
Thank you, Mr. McLemore. Mr. Christopher Bear will be speaking to any questions related to exceptional learners. He is the Assistant Superintendent for our Exceptional Learners Program.
Thank you, Dr. Sklarz. So there was one question that was pertaining to exceptional learners. Question is, are there any new initiatives or resources being proposed in the budget to better support students with special needs? How does the budget address any potential gaps or areas of improvement in supporting students with special needs? And what strategies are being implemented to address them? The response is that no special education personnel have been reduced from the current proposed budget. In fact, we increased related services in speech therapy and physical therapy to address student gaps post-COVID. These positions are supported by the federal IDA grant and have no impact on the general budget. We continue to provide targeted PD and curriculum resources to teachers to address learning gaps for students with disabilities through the proposed budget. As we continue to grow our internal exceptional learner programming, we are adding positions in this area, including teacher assistants and aides, which are mandatory in nature.
Thank you, Mr. Baer. Ms. Andrea Moriarty and Dr. Natasha Freeman-Mack will be speaking to questions regarding curriculum instruction.
Thank you, Dr. Scholars. The first question for curriculum instruction is, in reviewing the PowerPoint presentation about the proposed budget, slide number 2 specifically outlines the superintendent's priorities as being literacy of all scholars and exceptional learners. I strongly believe these two items go hand in hand. Therefore, why are certain certified literacy reading teachers being cut or removed from elementary schools where reading foundations are strongly needed to be built? I believe this cut relates to the budget, but cannot find the specific line item to outline. In response, literacy and reading teachers have not been cut. And as we prepare for the 2025 school year, we will continue to evaluate our academic intervention service model to ensure these resources are utilized equitably and effectively to raise our scholar achievement. Next slide.
Thank you. Question number 2, why aren't more webinar and virtual conference options looked into for staff development? More individuals, teachers, staff, faculty can access webinars and be provided training than at in-person conference halfway across the country. Going forward to save money, are webinar and virtual conferences always going to be research looked into? Some of the programs we implement in our district are supported by mandated PT that is offered at locations we cannot dictate. Webinars and virtual conferences are convenient and accessible and should complement staff development rather than replace in-person PD. Conferences provide a unique opportunity for networking and collaboration that simply can't be replicated in a virtual setting. Educators can engage in face-to-face discussions, share ideas, and build relationships with colleagues from diverse backgrounds and experiences. These interactions often lead to valuable insights and partnerships that enhance professional development and growth. In-person conferences are immersive learning experiences that go beyond passive participation in webinars. Through hands-on workshops, interactive presentations, and site visits, educators can gain practical skills and knowledge as well. Question number 3, if we do make these budget cuts, what will happen to music programs, the drama program? How many kids per teacher in each classroom? And will our students that have learning difficulties be more impacted because of the TA shortage? If so, how do you as an educator close that gap? Theater and visual arts programs have not been a part of any conversation related to budget cuts. The current music program will be maintained. Class sizes will be consistent with limits established in the teacher's contract and the ratios that best support our students. The district is realigning its instructional support resources based on student need. Next slide, please.
The fourth question, in what ways does the proposed budget support professional development in the science of reading? Does the budget allocate monies for curricular materials that are research-based in the area of reading? If so, which materials will be purchased? How will monies allocated support all scholars pre-K through 12, ENL, and SWDs to become proficient readers and mathematicians using research-based materials? Please be specific. Will monies be used to address the woeful shortage of providers for preschool students with disabilities? The response, as mentioned, one of the superintendent's top priorities is literacy for all. Included in this priority is our intentional focus on high-quality resources and professional development that will address the needs of our students. Additionally, we have been piloting iReady Classroom for math, which is aligned to the next generation learning standards. Literacy and math professional development will be prioritized in the upcoming school year. Currently, the county is responsible for providing these individuals. This is to address the preschoolers. But the district has started to work with the New York State Education Department around this need. Question number 5, if the budget is voted down and has to go to contingency, what will the actual items of the $126,000 reduction for athletics be? The response is this would be primarily be athletic equipment.
Question number 6. In reviewing the budget, field trips for NFA West for the 24-25 school year are projected to be $25,000 higher than last year. What trip or trips are causing such a large increase? Why is the increase for this school so large in comparison to the other school locations? In addition, why aren't school class trips taken to the NFA pool and the NFA planetarium? Response: NFA West has a weekly internship shuttle for the students. This cost was not associated with the building correctly in the past, but it is for fiscal year 25 and includes the annual increase for transportation expenses. We will review the opportunity for our students to go to the planetarium and also to the pool. We do cherish those areas for our students as well. Question number 7. Seems like there should be teachers for the scholars of the district. You can't cut those positions. However, they may need to be cut in upper level positions. Response: the district will continue to go through a right sizing to ensure we are operating in a sustainable manner for all of our students, all of our scholars. Next slide, please.
I believe that concludes all of the questions that we received prior to 4 p.m. on Friday. Thank you for joining us today. The presentation you saw this afternoon can be found on the district website later this afternoon. As a reminder, there will be a second virtual town hall presentation held on Thursday, May 16th at 6 p.m. The form to submit your questions is still open. Questions received by Tuesday, May 14th at 4 p.m. will be answered at Thursday's session. As a reminder, there is a public hearing for the 2024-2025 budget on Tuesday, May 14th at 7 p.m. The vote for the 2024-2025 school year budget will be held on Tuesday, May 21st. Polls are open from 12 p.m. noon to 9 p.m. More information can be found on the district website, newburghschools.org/budget. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a wonderful afternoon.